If they wanted to trade in a car, there is a big shortage of used car inventory. So dealers like
commotion about half mile down a dirt road. I went down there, and they had close to 100 there. So within 20, 30 minutes, I saw nearly 200 family units come across. I talked to, the Border Patrol agents recognized me. I was a Border Patrol agent. They know that. They see me on, out there. And it was the Border Patrol. One of the Border Patrols actually walked up to me and thanked me for what I'm doing, whether it's Fox News or the radio or whatever, to try to tell American people what's really going on. Because they said, our president won't admit what's going on down here. Our secretary's lying, saying there's no surge. He goes, we feel abandoned. So we're glad people like you are out there, trying to tell American people the truth. And which humbled me, but I told him, I said, look, you shouldn't be thanking me. I'm thanking you. And you're down here in a tough situation. This crisis did not need to happen. This was totally preventable. They knew what they were doing. And this isn't by accident. This is by design. This is open borders agenda. They know what they're doing. Because both Biden and Mayorkas were around during FY14-15 when there was a surge. Mayorkas was deputy secretary, and Biden was deputy president. They know what caused the surges. So the president knew when he was making these promises during the campaign, all these enticements, he knew what he was doing. They just failed to plan properly for the numbers and how they're going to hold them. So now they're embarrassed because the facility's overflowing. Mm-hmm. They should have planned better. But this is an open borders plan. This isn't mismanagement. This was by design.
We're in shoulda, woulda, coulda. Not getting rid of Trump policy would have been a good start. Enough common sense knowing that they were going to need convention centers, hotels all over the place. I suppose we have enough empty convention center space in the entire country to fill them all up, but that's the direction we're moving in. The U.S. has become now the daycare. Did you see those headlines on caravans forming again?
Well, we knew they would. I mean, look, they can say this border's not open. They can they can build all the billboards they want in Central America. Action speaks louder than words. Every one of these thousands of people are being released. They're calling their relatives. They're calling their friends. They're telling them exactly what's going on. The cartels, they're selling their products, saying the people are being released. They can talk the talk, but the action speaks louder than words. And the smugglers and the families and the relatives are all seeing what's actually happening. So, yes, they're going to keep coming. And you can say the border's closed all you want. It's not. And for them to get up in front of American people saying most families are being sent back to Mexico is a stone-cold lie. About 80% be released. I'm hearing that from the experts here that's releasing them. So it's incredible how this administration, in my entire career, I've never seen an administration spin the truth and actually out-and-out lie about what's going on the border. And they get away with it. And where are all the people screaming and yelling under the Trump administration when their places are overcrowded? You don't hear a word from them. They scream about the 2,500 family separation under Trump when the parents were prosecuted. They haven't said a word about the 17,000 family separations that have occurred because of these open border policies and put their kids in the arms of criminal cartels. We're not talking about that.
And we're just not able to even check DNA these days if there's a blood kin of these kids.
Let's face it. I mean, and we don't know if these are really family units. During the Trump administration, we did DNA across the board, and we found out in some of the pilot programs, like in El Paso, 30% of family units weren't even families. This administration has given a green light to child traffickers, sex traffickers, the criminal cartels to send 200 family units in one area. Because I asked the other night, I'm sending almost 200 family units in Border Patrol all over the place. I asked the Border Patrol, so where's the nearest Border Patrol station right now since you have all the assets right here? It was a couple miles away. I said, so the border is totally unguarded for at least a few miles going in that direction. It was absolutely, and we know that. And we know when we see central traffic and foot traffic that the cartels cross through that unprotected area because they've managed to send these 200 people over here to tie us up. And we can't walk away from these people. They got to do humanitarian checks and health care checks. Matter of fact, they had to call an ambulance for one of the mothers. So, they're using this humanitarian crisis and turning it to a national security crisis. During the last family surge, remember, over 60,000 Americans died from fentanyl overdoses that were smuggled across that border because the cartels took advantage of the humanitarian crisis.
Tom Holman was acting director for U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement under Donald Trump. Roxanne, headed to you. Go ahead, Roxy.
Just what a difference in contrast him and who Biden tapped to be the new ICE director. This question is for you, Chris. Thank you each one of you for joining us today. Chris, percentage-wise, how many are y'all catching right now? And out of those, how many are criminals?
We're catching, traditionally, we're sitting at a 51% apprehension rate, which is not good by any standards. Usually, but those we apprehend, usually about 30 to 35% have some type of criminal history in the United States. We don't know what their criminal history is in their home country, but in the United States, that's what it is.
35%?
30 to 35, somewhere in that range.
Let's go for the hardcore stuff. Then, how many are really, really bad? I know criminal record would be multiple entries, and I don't know, drunk driving, other stuff like that. But let's talk about rapists and murderers. Percentage wise, of the 50% that you catch, más o menos ballpark, how many are really bad hombres, as Donald Trump said?
You know, I don't have the numbers on those, and I can't say it's an overwhelming number. But it is any number of people that
Hopefully
that are
single
convicted.
digits, Chris. Hopefully. Yes.
Yeah, you know, hopefully. But I mean, we do see some with murder convictions, with rape convictions, with murder warrants, and you know, violent criminal histories, whether it be a history or an actual active warrant, which we have seen.
All right. It's already 21 minutes after the hour. You're listening to a KURV News special report. Border crisis, the immigration situation on our border. We're trying to give that top billing this hour. We appreciate the folks at Burt Ogden and Fiesta dealerships for making this hour of the program possible. Going to continue to focus on the security threat to our nation. We'll come back with one of our panelists, Todd Bensman for the Center for Immigration Studies, when we return. This is Newstalk 710 KURV. Questions, comments, all welcome at Newstalk 710 KURV Facebook Live. We'd like to thank our friends at Burt Ogden and Fiesta dealerships for today's KURV News Special.
My name is Juan Rodriguez. I'm the general manager for Burt Ogden Nissan and Fiesta Nissan. Fiesta Nissan is in Edinburgh, Texas, off of Alberta Road. Burt Ogden Nissan is located in McAllen, Texas, between Hackberry and Jackson. We know with COVID, consumers don't have the funds to get all the service done on their cars. So we've gone out and done the homework for them, and we've acquired companies that can help assist customers with a program where all they need is their driver's license. We scan it. It takes about 30 seconds. And if you wanted to get your complete service done on your car, you could give it in payments, or you could give it partial payments and get it done all in one day. Just like anything, we have a reputation to maintain, and we work hard to make sure that our consumers, our customers, and become our family. And we look at them like family. We want to make sure that they feel safe, that they understand that we have what's called a multi-point inspection done, where we check the car properly and secure their peace of mind, so that when they buy the car, they don't have to have that thought of, did they check everything right? Did they do everything right? We work hard to do that, and we work hard every day to keep improving on that. With the COVID epidemic, when it first started last year, everybody got nervous. All these public transportation options went away. People didn't want to use these public, the Lyft, the Uber, public buses. Nobody wanted to be in a public car. We saw an uptick in the car business. Mr. Vacker and Mrs. Vacker and Natasha, they did the homework and they foresaw an uptick in business. They ended up getting ahead of the game and acquiring a large amount of inventory, like at our 2 Nissan stores. We've got over 1,200 cars in inventory, and we're getting more inventory as the months come, just to get ahead of the game so the consumer can take advantage of that part of it.
Lease, purchase, you can do everything online. It all starts at burtogden.com.
Audio streaming on KURV.com. Powered by South Texas Buick GMC, McAllen Mission.
23 minutes after the hour, you're listening to a KURV News special report. Border immigration crisis. Our guests today, Chris Cabrera with U.S. Border Patrol, Victor Avila, retired ICE agent. You heard participation from Tom Holman. He was the acting director under President Trump for U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement, and also Todd Bensman with the Center for Immigration Studies. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, this is Davis Rankin for Mr. Bensman. Since you've got such a long history in studying security threats, the pictures that appear in the national news are always, they don't look like security threats to me. So what are you talking about? And you catch any spies or people are going to blow something up?
Well, just 3 weeks ago, the CBP Public Affairs Office published a press release about 2 Yemenis who were apprehended in Calexico, California, who were already on the FBI's terrorism watch list when they came over. And one of them was actually also on the no-fly list, which is an even more rarefied, it's harder to get on the no-fly list. That no-fly listed Yemeni, they both came over the Mexico border, of course, after flying into Brazil and making their way up. Also had a SIM card hidden in his shoe. That is an indication, those two, which is a public acknowledgement in a press release, very rare, of a lot more migrants like them who have indeed crossed the border. I'm out with a new book right now called America's Covert Border War. And that book is entirely about a different kind of migrant that doesn't speak Spanish, but speaks Arabic and Pashtun and Somali dialects, and are also coming across the border in smaller numbers. The book really deals with what the American Homeland Security Enterprise does with those kind of immigrants, and also how they're trying to prevent that traffic from making it over the border, because just like any other immigrant that reaches the border, they come in with absolutely no identification. They're strangers. They say, my name is Mickey Mouse and I declare asylum. You figure it out from here. Good luck. And that is a national security element with having a border crisis of this magnitude that we're in right now.
Todd, a few days ago, we featured some audio that our colleagues at the Texas State Network, they had these little news packages, and they spoke with this Rice University academic who had really no experience or any education whatsoever when it came to security or law enforcement issues. He specialized in something else, but they went to him and they featured him statewide, and this Rice University professor seemed to be diminishing any threat to our country when it comes to individuals who come in, and pointed to those two, said, look, they got him. That's what we have right now on the border. It works. I think he failed to understand that we're only catching 50% of what's coming in right now, and Lord knows who else is coming in. Do you have any more research into any potential cells or sleeper cells, anybody else that wants to do us some harm?
And what's the Biden administration do with the information about this sort of thing, if you know?
Right. Well, first of all, it is relieving. It's a relief that we caught those two Yemenis, and it's also a relief that we've caught a lot more people just like them that were not put in press releases, that were not publicized in any way, because this is a covert operation. These kind of operations are not meant for public consumption normally. The issue really is that when you have a border security meltdown like we are having right now, especially in certain areas of the border, then your normal border control management systems break down and make it less likely that you're going to be able to catch the next Yemenis that come across. And in any case, we have much more than Yemenis coming across. We just had a couple of months ago 11 Iranians who crossed into Arizona. We have Iranians cross all the time, actually. It's not just those 11, but those ones made the news. And you have the issue with Iranians, of course, is most of them are probably going to be asylum seekers, but again, we don't know who they are. That's the problem. And those folks are probably more of an espionage threat. There is this threat out there of retaliation for the killing of General Soleimani, the Al-Quds Force general for Iran. They have been vowing to attack in retaliation.
And if we
for
could
that
press the pause button real quick, Todd Bensman for the Center for Immigration Studies. I know you're trying to research all this information. Have you been able to attain a better picture on who these folks from Iran are? After all, I know that of many people on the planet, folks in Iran, they are desperate to seek freedom and seek opportunity and get out of that mullah state. Do they come here with nefarious intent? Have federal authorities said that whether these folks are just Iranians seeking liberty, seeking freedom, or are they part of some sleeper cell?
Yeah, here's the thing is with espionage, people who come in are coming in under cover. They have cover stories. They are trained in cover stories. I personally have met Iranians on their way here in Costa Rica and Panama. And I know that there is a steady stream of them. I think probably most of them are asylum seekers who are fleeing some kind of persecution. The Iranian regime is an unkind regime to Kurds and gay people and all sorts of freedom-loving types. And so we have to acknowledge that many of these are, legitimate asylum seekers, but at the same time, we just don't know. That is the national security question with regard to this traffic. There might be 3,000 to 4,000 a year coming from countries of national security concern, places like Syria, places like Somalia. We have had quite a few Somalis cross who were active members of Al-Shabaab, the U.S. designated terrorist group. We have had prosecutions that laid bare their terrorism associations and involvements and activities, and they reached our border. And if those folks can reach our border, we need to be able to figure out who they are before we let them in. And quite a few of them, as I point out in America's Covert Border War, have been deported. We very quietly deport them away. The 2 Yemenis undoubtedly will be deported eventually, maybe to an allied country like Saudi Arabia. Who knows what's going to happen with those? But the point is we have had terrorists cross that border, and we have thankfully caught them. And we've also had a lot of terrorist victims cross the border seeking asylum. We just have to be able to vet who they are. That's all.
Yeah, that's Todd Bensman, Center for Immigration Studies. You said some key words there, Todd. Legitimate asylum seekers, political and religious victims of political and religious persecution, and is quite unfair to these folks who try to make it to our shores desperately, make it to our shores seeking some type of relief and refuge. And at the moment, the border is flooded with tens of thousands of economic migrants that have been pulled this way by the Biden administration. You're listening to a KURV special report, Border Immigration Crisis. Your calls welcome, your comments welcome, especially online. That's where we can capture those and get them to the panel. It's News Talk 710 KURV, Facebook Live. We're going to talk about the changing role for Immigration Customs Enforcement with someone in the know who worked at ICE and has been talking with friends behind the scenes at ICE, Victor Avila. That's next. Thanks for joining us on News Talk 710 KURV. Again, join us at Facebook Live, News Talk 710 KURV.
Top and bottom of the hour news. This is News Talk 710 KURV.
4:33 on News Talk 710 KURV. Good afternoon. I'm Tim Sullivan. Federal investigators have executed search warrants at Rudy Giuliani's Manhattan residence and office. The former attorney for former President Trump has been under investigation for some time over his business dealings in Ukraine. Details of the reasons for today's search is not immediately available. A judge has denied requests to publicly release body camera video in the case of a black man shot and killed by North Carolina sheriff's deputies. The decision came shortly after a prosecutor said that Andrew Brown Jr. had hit law enforcement officers with his car before they opened fire. A juror who cast one of the votes to convict former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin of killing George Floyd says their deliberations were mostly focused on trying to convince one other juror who was uncertain about the jury instructions. Brandon Mitchell is the first juror to talk publicly about the experience. He says he felt like deliberations could have lasted only about 20 minutes otherwise. President Biden will present a vast and expensive policy agenda when he makes his first speech to a joint session of Congress tonight. Biden will push his more than $2 trillion infrastructure proposal. Biden will also unveil the American Families Plan, something that would cost nearly $2 trillion. That measure aims to make big federal investments in child care, family leave, and education. White House infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci says If coronavirus cases go down, guidelines aimed at protecting people will continue to be loosened. The CDC has eased guidelines on wearing masks outdoors, saying fully vaccinated Americans no longer need to cover their faces unless they're in a large crowd. But Fauci adds, for cases to go down and for masks to continue to come off, people need to get vaccinated. Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins has died at age 90. Collins piloted the ship from which Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin left to make their historic first steps on the moon in 1969. Collins' family says the astronaut died from cancer. Collins spent the 8-day mission piloting the command module Columbia. And the Federal Reserve is keeping its ultra-low interest rate policies in place, a sign it wants to see more evidence of a strengthening economic recovery before it will consider easing its support. The Fed today leaving its benchmark short-term rate near zero to continue to encourage borrowing and spending. And on Wall Street today, the Dow closed down 164 points, NASDAQ lost 39, S&P 500 dropped 3. Your 710 KURV exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Wind advisory is going to be in effect through 7 tonight, and then it'll be warm and breezy overnight, lows in the mid-70s. Times of clouds and sun tomorrow, hot and humid, high of 96, and right now it's 97 at 710 KURV. News at the top and bottom of the hour and when it breaks, and on demand at KURV.com. I'm Tim Sullivan, 710 KURV.
All dealerships still practicing COVID protocol?
We implemented a safety protocol last year, sometime in March, and we spent numerous hours refining this. We still practice social distancing. We require a proper mask to be worn when entering the dealerships. We have hand sanitizers in every entrance of the dealership so that customers feel safe and can sanitize their hands when they walk in. We recommend to our employees to wash their hands. We encourage eating in your office by yourself or eating in your car by yourself. We've got a temperature machine in every entrance that's required to check your temperature just to give the consumer peace of mind. Every car that's demoed is sanitized before and after. Anytime you bring your car into service, we sanitize the car. We put plastic sheets around the steering wheel, around the gearbox, in the seat that we're going to be sitting on. We're the ones that personally take it off when we're done with the car. We make sure that our managers are monitoring and keeping up with our staff. We have a one-on-one check-in every day with them just to make sure that they look good, that they don't have any concerns. It gives them peace of mind. And most of our staff is vaccinated. We've got 2 Nissan stores. I would say about 75% of the staff is vaccinated.
Chip shortage. I understand the inventory is okay.
When COVID started, everybody wanted to buy the Xbox and the PlayStation 5, and it's on back order. And the reason why it's on back order is the same chip that's used for those is also used for cars, and it's called the semiconductor chip. When that happened, everybody saw it was going to be an issue with us. And so the one thing that the group did with the help of Mr. Vacker, they got ahead of the game and they acquired inventory to help us. Nissan is about 1,200 in inventory on stock in the ground right now, and we've got about another 500 coming. All the other dealerships are the same. They're stocked up well.
Thank you to the Bert Ogden family for today's special KURV broadcast. Learn more at bertogden.com.
Tune in for Fox News coverage of President Joe Biden's address to a joint session of Congress later tonight starting at 7:30 on News Talk 710 KURV and KURV.com.
Got about 20 minutes left in the broadcast. If you want to chime in, send a question to us via News Talk 710 KURV Facebook Live. Our panelists today on the KURV Special Report Border Immigration Crisis: Victor Avila, retired ICE agent; Chris Cabrera, U.S. Border Patrol and their union office; Tom Holman, got some audio from him, and the former acting director for U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement under the Trump administration; and Todd Bensman, Center for Immigration Studies. Let me share some audio. I know Tom Holman was trying to get on the ground. His flight was super late. He was trying to get on the ground. I got some more audio from Tom. He was in the Valley. Tom Holman, the former acting director for U.S. ICE, he was in the Valley just a few days back talking with local Border Patrol and witnessing the flood of humanity that is still crossing our border. And let me share cut 2. Go ahead, Joe. former ICE chief under President Trump, Tom Holman, is in South Texas looking at this mess created by President Biden, who has not come, who looks like he won't be coming anytime soon. Kamala Harris, vice president, supposedly been appointed tip of the spear to take care of this by President Biden, laughing it off. She won't be coming anytime soon. We have a leadership vacuum on this issue, and it's creating a pull force that is scary to see, and we're just getting started. And Tom Holman, as former ICE chief, also looking at how ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, the guys who are in charge of rounding up ex-felons and rapists and child abusers and kicking them out of the country. ICE can't do its job these days, and that's scary.
Look, ICE has been decapitated. You know, if you look at who they're 91% of everybody ICE arrested and removed last year were either a convicted criminal or they were pending criminal charges when they found them because they're sitting in a county jail or state prison. Here's the issue. 91% were criminals. So why was there a need to further prioritize? What they did, again, was by design. They made the priorities just murders and rapists. At the same time, they didn't change any of the policies of sanctuary cities, so murders and rapists are going to keep walking out of sanctuary city jail, so they don't work with ICE or accept their detainers. So that, again, smoke and mirrors. And what you know is no longer a priority for ICE? Fugitive aliens, which means those who went to court or didn't show up in court got removed by the immigration judge. Yeah. If they're not a criminal, they're no longer a priority. So these thousands of families coming in right now, these children, 90% will lose their case based on the data from the last few years, and no one's going to leave because no one's going to arrest them because ICE won't be allowed to arrest them. These children are vulnerable. They've been put in a bad position by their parents in this administration. So, you know, look, I hope these children are well taken care of because I'm a father myself. But, yeah, there's some people come down to help. Look, Border Patrol cannot handle this. Border Patrol, it's like I talked to somebody last night, and they said, it's Broken Arrow. We are at Broken Arrow here, and we need help. We need it now. And he goes, and you know, these guys are getting sick. They're calling in sick. They're taking sicknesses home from their families. Because a lot of these families have measles and chickenpox. They have some TB in there, and lice is going through the facility. These men and women take these sicknesses home to their families, and they're getting sick. They're being overworked, and they're right around people who are very ill.
Roxanne, back to you.
Again, very different from Ed Gonzalez, who Biden tapped to be the next ICE director. This question for Victor Avila. Victor, can you explain to us, to listeners, what does ICE do, what your role is, and also how it's changed under this administration?
Oh my goodness! Well, ICE tackles any violation of law that has a nexus to our U.S. border, whether it's southern border or northern border. And we're talking about any violation of law. ICE, DHS, Homeland Security Investigations is the investigative arm. And there's two divisions: the enforcement removal operations, the ones that deal with the illegal aliens, the detention facilities, and then HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, that conduct these investigations into the money laundering. Remember, there's also U.S. Customs law violations. Let's not forget that. Intellectual property rights violations. And of course, all the traffickings, the human trafficking, the human smuggling, arms trafficking, and everything else involved. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Roxanne, about, I wanted to talk about the shift that we're seeing. We know what's going on at the border and the crisis and everything. And I've been focusing a lot lately about the trend that the Biden administration is doing. And you already mentioned one of them is that the people he's appointing. And you're right, Ed Gonzalez, the Harris County Sheriff, who got rid of the 287G program. And these are individuals that are not favorable to ICE. They never have been friendly to ICE.
Expand on that. I'm sorry, Vic. 287G, expand to working people what 287G does.
287G program is a program that local state officials or sheriffs, police can notify ICE, and when ICE places a detainer, to have ICE notified and have the state officials be able to detain that individual, to have ICE notified and have them taken custody when they're released on their state charges. Remember, they go into these county jails with arrests for mostly state violations. The federal ones, obviously, ICE or other federal agencies will place a detainer there. But when it comes to the 287G program, it's a cooperation between the state government and state police agencies and ICE. And Ed Gonzalez did did not want to cooperate with that. The same thing kind of happens here on the other side with CBP and Commissioner Chris Magnus, the police chief out of Tucson, Arizona, who has been sent to be a CBP commissioner. I see the trend of what they're doing here. Just last week, the Biden administration is not allowing ICE officials to use the word illegal alien anymore, or to use the term assimilation anymore. I have these names in my book on purpose because I think those are, first of all, illegal alien is a legal term that is in the Immigration and Nationality Act. And as a federal probation officer before I was an agent, we used to have to write that. And all it means is you're a foreigner from this country. It's not a derogatory term. But I also see that how it's shifting to the sheriffs already in Texas, how many of them already filed for a state of emergency. And Governor Abbott has already sent a letter to the Biden administration requesting reimbursement of a lot of millions of dollars because these local sheriffs and local police offices don't have the resources to deal with these people. That's going to continue to happen in the interior of our country. These individuals are going all over the U.S., New Jersey, Virginia, Michigan, all over the place, and they're going to start feeling the burden. And we're going to see, unfortunately, the crimes attached to the criminal element that the Border Patrol is talking about, that Todd Benson is talking about, that Tom Homan is talking about. We will see those individuals that are tied to the cartels, that are possibly tied to terrorist organizations, be in your neighborhood. And all of a sudden, we're going to have not just the economic migrant to deal with in our education system and our healthcare system, but the criminal justice system is probably be the biggest one, because the last thing I want to see is more angel moms and angel dads affected by at the hands of illegal aliens and be killed like they have been separated permanently from their families because an illegal alien killed their loved one. And unfortunately, that's probably going to happen when we see these criminal element members, especially the ones that are being smuggled. Keep in mind that and the Border Patrol agent can tell us here, the smuggling still continues and the trafficking still continues, even more so now. The fentanyl, the methamphetamine continues to come undetected. And those are the individuals that we do not have any information on, despite the ones that we do and that we might have some vetting on. There's ones, when I was down there, I missed Tom Homan. I crossed paths with him. I saw 400 plus individuals released from the river straight to the downtown McAllen bus station, straight to the airplane. I saw illegal aliens board an airplane without any identification. I couldn't do it as a U.S. citizen. And they were boarding airlines and airplanes and buses without identification, without any vetting, without any DNA, without any notice to appear. This is the crisis that we're going to see the ripple effect down from South America, down from Costa Rica, down from all these areas, because Todd Benson is correct. It is not just the Central Americans and Mexicans, it is the rest of the world, the Chinese that are coming.
And the new director for ICE, Roxanne, you said you had an observation to make about his lack of participation in the Trump program on 287G.
Well, just that he ended that program 1 month into becoming sheriff. He became sheriff in 2017, January, and then in February, he ended that program, the one that Victor Avila was talking about.
Victor, did Sheriff Gonzalez in Harris County, did he not participate at all with this retainer program to hold at least the hardened criminals?
Well, there's two things here. One, they have to by law. There's a Texas law where they have to participate and they have to acknowledge the detainer by ICE. And so at one point, he's defending himself that he didn't he had to do it anyway, that he was doing it, but that's because he had to do it anyway because it's a Texas law. But his personal choice was he did not want to enforce that. And that's the big difference that we're going to see here. You know, there's the big movement of abolishing ICE to begin with from the far left. And we see individuals that are being appointed by the Biden administration that share in this sentiment. And so it doesn't help in our border security whatsoever.
That's your new director of ICE. Yeah, he was pushing back against the anti-sanctuary city law in Texas. That's what Gonzalez got all upset with. Davis,
are you saying Senate Bill 4?
Yeah, the SB 4 and the ones been challenged back and forth. Yeah, that was an anti-sanctuary city law in Texas, and it's been held up. And he had a hissy fit on that one. That's probably why he didn't participate.
Just real quickly, even last year, I was
yeah.
reading that Harris County, they released a Honduran man who was arrested for a DWI who was scheduled for deportation in 2019, yet they knew that and still released him anyways into the U.S. So
Okay.
Ed Gonzalez is not the right person
Well, he's
to
going
lead
to be
ICE.
more than likely, unless he comes up against the chainsaw at the Senate for some reason. I guess he's going to be the new ICE director. You talk about changing the culture for immigration customs enforcement. Davis, go ahead.
I have a question to, I suppose, everybody. There's been talk, a lot of talk over the years about declaring the Mexican drug cartels or crime cartels as some sort of strategic threat, a terrorist organization like Hezbollah or Hamas. That's been talked about and never done. I just recently see that somebody else now, maybe it was Governor Abbott, saying the same thing. Are you all in favor of that? And what difference would it make?
Let's start with Todd on that one. Go ahead, Todd. Todd Bensman with the Center for Immigration Studies.
Well, I certainly understand the impulse to push for designation like that. I have mixed feelings. I have a lot of friends that are strongly in favor of it. I'm not as in favor of that as at least the way it's being proposed, because I worry that the designation like that would overwhelm the current infrastructure that is set up to enforce on designation law. That it would distract. It might potentially distract from the jihadist threat, which is still global and quite real and pressing, in my opinion. But on the other hand, if they can craft something where it is very, very targeted to a very particular kind of organization, these things are constantly morphing and breaking off and fracturing, and we really don't know. Some of them have, tens of thousands of associates. The Sinaloa cartel has, thousands of associates. So, at some point you can't.
They're like amoeba. They keep splitting, dividing, getting back together again.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult to enforce something like that. That's another novel, I would say. But I mean, I'm open to suggestion, and I would like to see some additional steps that could help curtail the globalization of the cartels. Some of these cartels are in 50 different countries now.
Yeah.
And I think there could be something to be done with that, maybe short of an official terrorist designation, which requires a State Department 7-step process. It's really intended for international jihadist terrorism that of the sort that caused 9/11.
Chris, let's go back to Chris Cabrera, U.S. Border Patrol, our union office here in South Texas. Give folks working for a living right now a perspective, maybe some numbers on how bad it is, maybe comparison to this time a couple of years back or 2 years ago. What are you dealing with? What is Border Patrol family wrestling with right now on front lines?
We're seeing anywhere between 1,500 to 1,000 or 1,000 to 1,500 a day, sometimes upwards of 2,000.
And that's just Rio Grande Valley sector, right, Chris?
That's just Rio Grande Valley sector. That's not the rest of the nation. And then you keep in mind that we're not catching but half of what's coming across. And getting back to what Mr. Benson was saying, that something needs to be done to target these individuals and these cartels. I mean, they're operating in every city, not just major city, every city in the United States, and it's really turned Mexico upside down. And you need not look any further than the Rio Grande River. I mean, you name a major waterway in the United States, whether it be a river or a lake, that doesn't have $1 million houses, and the only one I know of is the Rio Grande River. And why is that? It's because it's not safe because it borders up against Mexico, and Mexico is a beautiful country, but it's just been torn apart by these cartels. And unfortunately, we have them living here in the valley. They're all over. They're in all cities in Texas. They're up north. They're everywhere. And unless we get serious and wipe this threat out, it's going to continue to fester like like a disease.
To the best of your knowledge, Chris, human trafficking, is that the number one source of revenue now for the cartels?
Yeah, by far. You know, when you're looking at 7 to 10,000 for a Central American, a little bit more farther south that you go, and then you look into somewhere off the continent, whether it be China or what we're seeing a lot of now is Romanians paying 25 to 30,000 a head. Wow. I mean, that's a lot of money. And, you know, when you get caught bringing in marijuana and you get caught with it, you can run, but it can't. But you get caught bringing in bodies, everything runs in different directions, and it's kind of hard to, you know, pin the tail on who did it, you know, so.
Last time we spoke with our local Border Patrol chief, all metrics were higher, including some of the more scarier ones, 18-wheelers full of human beings and stash houses. Those numbers are going north, and we're starting to enter the very hot season for South Texas. I'm guessing you guys are going to be real busy with stash houses and 18-wheelers full of human beings from this point on, and God forbid the worst headlines, which would be people succumbing to the heat. You guys training more Borstar agents to try to help out with heat exhaustion and all that, Chris?
You know, we do have Borstar agents, which they do a wonderful job. Not to mention in the Rio Grande Valley sector, we have emergency medical program, which are agents, just regular line agents that are trained either from an EMT perspective or up to a paramedic certification. And those guys drive around. We have some on every shift in every station. That way, if somebody, whether it be an agent, someone, an illegal alien that we encounter, or even a member of the public, if we see somebody in distress, we're trained to go out there, give them an IV, call for support, air support, or whatever the case may be. So I think we're getting more and more prepared every day.
Tell me again, Joe. Let me ask my producer. 1 minute left. All right. Well, let me go over then at top of the hour, because I want to give these folks a final word. And I know Davis had a question on personnel. Remember that question you sent me earlier on the number of people, number of Border Patrol agents?
How many more Border Patrol agents, bodies would, Chris, would you think would be needed in order to be fully staffed and be able to do your job?
You know, I'm sure we could use more Border Patrol agents, but I think even more so, get us out of the processing rooms, get us out of babysitting duties, just put us out there in the field to do our job, and we'll handle it. We don't need a single person. Just let us go out there and work, and we'll get it done. And
more importantly, change policy so that the asylum laws are not being gamed, and the cartels gaming those asylum laws and sending tens of thousands of people here trying to get a foothold in this country. Guys, thank you so much for your participation. Victor Avila, final thought from you, brother. Go ahead.
I thank you for having us on this show and to talk about this important that all of a sudden we're not seeing a lot of the national coverage all of a sudden. I wonder if Biden's going to talk about it tonight, and ignoring it is not going to go away. And I think the designation, I know Todd and I might not agree on this one, but I think designation of the FTO of the cartels, not all of them, but the big ones, is a drastic measure that I think we've gotten to the point where we have to take for our national security. I think the cartels are the new national security threat to our country. Chris, I agree with you. Let's let our Border Patrol agents enforce the law. Let's have our border agents and our union come together and uphold the Constitution to protect our sovereignty as a nation.
Please do the DuckDuckGo search. Don't use Google. Go DuckDuckGo and look for Center for Immigration Studies and all the work that Todd Benjamin and Cougar are doing. So, Todd, final word from you, brother. What you got?
I would just caution the administration and all of the officials in that administration to try to not message that the border is open. I keep hearing the president himself say no child will be left behind in Mexico. I spent a lot of time with migrants in Mexico. I just came back from Mexico 3 days ago, and I was with the migrants, and I never met one who didn't have a cell phone that was plugged into the internet and social media, and they are very acutely attuned to what the Biden administration is doing to open the gates, and they're responding to that by coming through the gates. And when I hear the president say things in internationally televised press conferences like, no child will be left behind, what that does is it creates more children coming over the border. And so I have to say that every time that I talk to migrants, and I ask them, why are you coming now? And I mean, every time they say it's because the Biden administration is going to let us in. I interviewed just real quickly, I interviewed a La Linea smuggler the other day in Mexico, and he called this La Invitación.
The invitation, the invite.
The invitation.
Yeah,
and that's how they look at it. And their business is absolutely booming. These guys can't keep up with the business. And they thank Joe Biden for it. The cartels thank Joe Biden for his La Invitación.
Appreciate your contribution, Todd. Yeah. Were you done? I'm sorry, brother, for interrupting you.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, friend. Thanks for joining us today. Chris, final word from you. Chris Cabrera, U.S. Border Patrol. Go.
Yeah, Sergio, just a little off topic. If you guys could please keep in your prayers the family of Border Patrol Agent John Vargas. He passed away suddenly last night, a sudden onset of an illness, and he leaves behind a family and his Border Patrol co-workers. So if you could keep him in your thoughts and prayers, we would greatly appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that heads up. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today, and a big thank you to our friends, family over at Burt Ogden Fiesta Dealerships in South Texas. This has been a KURV special report, Border Immigration Crisis. The recording of this you can find at Facebook. You can share that link with friends and family. And thank you to our participants, Tom Holman for the audio he provided us earlier. Also, Todd Bensman, Center for Immigration Studies, Chris Cabrera, and Victor Avila. Thank you for your insight. This is News Talk 710 KURV. This is KURV Edinburgh.
So my name's Juan Rodriguez. I'm the general manager for Burt Ogden Nissan, Fiesta Nissan. On the used car sellers market, right now is the perfect time.